Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're taking a look at a more aggressive Portalcraft deck. This was pulled straight from Twitter and it does quite well. It's running no Spinarias and no Otherworld Rifts and is definitely a lot more pro-aggression and early game structure. So hopefully it definitely improves on the more control or mid-rangey decks, I guess. You couldn't nearly call this a mid-range deck, although I'd be more tempted to kind of put it in an in-between category. I don't think mid-range really suits exactly what this deck does. For the most part, you're closing out games, while yes, some will run long, mostly around 6 and 7. Usually that's where the point of no return is, and your opponent just isn't coming back from that. Even though a game might go to turn 10, usually you've won well before that anyway. So we'll get right into the video and check it out. So the matches for this deck and video are both against Dirt Rune. I found that was a very interesting match to play, and a couple of really cool matches come out of that, so that's what I'll be showing you guys today. I would have liked a little more variation and show you, but honestly it doesn't matter what you fight, you're going in with the same idea, so you're either going heavy wards or heavy rush, which I think both these videos show off pretty nicely. At least I'm pretty sure these are both Dirt Rune. I know the second one is, but this one I can't say for 100% was Dirt Rune, and it is. Okay, that made it easy. Either way. So starting off with a nice 2, 3, 4 kind of curve works out really well, especially with Acceleradium and Biofabrication. The Synthetic Beast is a little awkward. Sphere is just always awkward in this situation. Really only used as a closer in other kind of matchups. I find Dirt Rune you're better off using smaller followers to do chip damage over time than to just go for one big burst. So our Biofabrication makes our analyzing super cheap, and with double Excel we can now actually get 2 play points for free in return, meaning those Excels are basically free cards at this point.
Gaze into the light.
And our opponent really doesn't do anything else, and drawing the substitution here was perfect. Although I could have used it on the other one, I decided to go for that because I wanted to remove the Magic Illusionist without having to have it regenerate a few times. And because I knew I was getting a puppet, I could easily use these couple of things for trade materials and not really have to worry, although I do miss out on the chance to use Acceleradiums all completely free. But that's not the worst thing in the world.
Are you defying me?
So as you can see, from here we're pretty heavily favoured, and this was a weird Dirt Rune running Abomination. I mean, that made it a little different. But it's nice to see people in Masters playing different decks, so I'm not really going to complain too much about seeing something a little from left field. So I get Iron Staff Mechanic, which kind of forces me to go for a more aggressive rush ward sort of style over just going straight out wards or straight out rush. I really needed to mix them together to get some value. But we keep getting those two damage chips in over and over again, which really start to add up over the turns. And Saphira is actually a pretty good option going into turn 6, so pretty positive there overall. An opponent throwing another Abomination to the board, going to pay their own Evolve on it, and use it as a 6/6 trade.
Life will exist no more. Not
Not so lucky for them because the Saphira is an exact counter to that, provided we don't draw anything else. And we get Mystic Artifact, which while may not be as safe as Saphira, I think it works just as well considering Mystic Artifact is now free on its own, so that's always a bonus, and we get a second Mystic Artifact to play as well. So we actually get some decent draw power, which is always a nice thing to get in these situations, especially when we can actually go straight into Mech Soldier this turn for an extra draw as well. So really milling out those artifacts and cards early. It also works nicely because I get to keep double wards up, which are very hard to beat over. Their only real advantage would be playing something like Levi to clear out the board. But even then, they're going to be at a pretty big disadvantage going into the next turn. Which they realised pretty soon that I was going to snowball the game from there. Okay, so the next match, pretty much the same sort of situation. We're going into a Dirt Rune match where Dirt Rune just really can struggle to outbeat, and it's something that has an aggressive edge to begin with, so of course we are favoured in general. So it's not showing a disadvantaged matchup, but overall I don't think that's necessary when we're showing off the deck's capabilities. We really just want to show what it can do and how it functions, which in this case works pretty nicely. I mean, Meta Production is a nice turn 1 card in this deck because it does give you that aggressive artifact and draw that you might need to, say, cycle a card, which works out nice. And then the 2-drops, whether you're running Mechaling Swordsman or Mage Steel Lion as your 2-drop, both are going to be pretty good. Although I do favour Swordsman in the early game because it does mean that I can plan out the randomness a little later on. So knowing that the first 2 artifacts are random, it means my next turn isn't as bad. Whereas if I go straight into Mage Steel Lion, I have no variation in what I can pick and choose from. So unless I'm going for rush artifacts, I don't like playing Lion over Swordsman on an empty board. So luckily this worked out quite well, letting me put out just a few cards here. Of course we do have the Ironforged Fighter, which, while I didn't like that card much to start with, it's kind of grown on me as a really good Radiant card, so I'm really enjoying that use. So Cat Cannoneer, another really good card. I mean, we are going into turn 5, where something like Cat Cannoneer actually is really decent. But Magic Owl kind of ruins our day a little bit. This deck was also a little odd. I couldn't say for sure whether it was a Dirt Rune deck in the end, so I guess I thought it was Dirt Rune when we began the match, but as we got further in the match it did seem more and more Daria-like, so maybe a little incorrect with what I mentioned them both being Dirt Rune. That happens sometimes when I confuse certain matchups.
Time to head home.
So there's the insight. So yeah, definitely seems to be leaning towards that. Yes, because I was more focused on what I was playing, trying to counter it. And we do finally get a Des Ex off. We don't really need to do anything else at this point. I mean, Cat Cannoneer would have been nice, but really wouldn't have gained us much. So getting Des Ex out and giving it an evolve and basically a free trade here works out really well in our favour. Especially getting that couple of chip damage in. Double Radiance though, that's super awkward just because of Radiant artifacts aren't going to deal with this board very well.
The gears of fate still turn.
So the Iron Staff mechanic does its job okay enough at least. And Mecha Soldier actually gets us a draw, which is pretty much just so I can discard this hand and try and get some more lower cost stuff. Even though we do have 3 Radiant artifacts at this point, I really just want some lower cards to deal with Daria boards that are most likely coming up. So this matchup is very much whoever has the best roll, and at this point in the game I did have probably the better roll out of the two of us. So that preparing for Daria was the perfect strategy. I get to deal with a fairly reasonable board. And the Golem isn't really scary. I mean, a 5/5 that turns into a 3/1 that's going to be easily banished. Not really any kind of issue. Especially with Ancient Artifact.
Weapons, got you covered.
Aiming for any kind of pull and analyzing will work really nicely. Especially since we do have the Puppet, which allows us to quite quickly trade with the Daria while at the same time staying out of Resonance or in Resonance depending on what we want based on mana production and all the other cards we have at this point. So I am going to pretty much get to play everything I need here.
Yeah, right.
Whoa, I'm actually flying.
So while I don't play absolutely everything from this hand, I end up sticking with it because I know what I can do next turn. With Mystic Artifact and Meta Production will be enough to basically play this entire hand out and deal quite a good amount of damage overall. I mean, how do you deal with the 2-3, 4-3, 2-2 and whatever else I can throw out in that turn? In most situations, they just don't. So this is what made me think it was Dirt, because I ended up playing Oz, which was really confusing, but I'm guessing it's a hybrid Daria deck, so it threw me a little bit, but I guess it makes sense. If you are looking for those pushes, you want to be playing a bunch of low-cost spells, and that can really do the job. This is something I haven't seen for a long time. Analyzing Artifact, I guess if I can use it, I'll take advantage of it. Gets another ping in, and goes into an Icarus, so we get to go Ironforge Icaruses and a meta production to clear out a hand, put us into resonance, draw a whole new one, and an extra card. So a 7-card draw, plus a super solid board. At this point, I don't think there's any major risks from our opponent. Worst case, honestly, would be that they just slam me, but they would need at least 2 to 3 cards to deal with this.
Atone with your lifeblood.
So the Silent Laboratory, not really any issue. Magic Owl, pretty weak. I mean, we dealt with the Daria, which was the biggest turn. And they've actually allowed me now to set up my trade, play my Radiant Artifact for 12 damage total to clear this out completely and take the victory. Not too bad at all. So I hope you guys did enjoy this video. This portal deck is a reasonable bit different to my previous artifact portals because it is more aggressive. Again, I did pull it straight from Twitter. I'm sorry I don't have the original link for that, but I will leave the link to this deck in the description below for you guys to check out. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content, and I will catch you guys next time. See ya.